Hello, I'm Shanta Devarajan, and I'm going to talk about the uses and abuses of CGE models in policy analysis. The first one is about NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which was signed in the early 1990s between the US, Mexico, and Canada. And while the treaty was being discussed, there was concern about the impact of such a free trade agreement, especially on the agriculture sector in Mexico. Mexico at that time was undertaking various reforms of the agricultural sector, and there was a concern that these reforms might either be derailed or undermined by a free trade agreement with the United States, and in particular with the effect on many of the corn farmers, or people working in the corn industry in Mexico, which would suffer from increased imports of corn from the United States, which was a lower cost producer. So a CGE model was used to examine the impact of a free trade agreement on the agricultural sectors in both the US and Mexico. And what this model showed was that while the corn sector would suffer, would actually lose competitiveness, the increased possibility of selling high-valued goods such as fruits and vegetables by Mexico to the United States would partially offset that effect. But the other thing that it showed was that this effect would not be immediate because the fruit and vegetable exports was actually at a very low level. And so this gave this analysis, which by the way was supplemented by various detailed sectoral analyses. And that's one of the things that we find is that when other models give you similar results, they are much more credible. But what this analysis said was that they may need to modulate the pace at which they do agricultural reform in Mexico, because it'll take a while for the benefits of the free trade agreement to kick in. And that actually was the basis of the plan. And I think there was an agreement that these the relaxation of tariffs and trade would take over 15 years. But now another analysis on the effect of the free trade agreement on in the U.S. Actually had an unfortunate outcome, and that was an analysis that looked at the effect of the NAFTA on unskilled or low-skilled wages in the U.S. And what that analysis, it was a CGE model, what that showed, which was consistent with the Stolper-Samuelson theorem, was that there would be a slight decrease in unskilled wages in the U.S. But because it was showing a decrease, the agency that did the analysis chose not to publish it. But nevertheless, the AFL-CIO found out about it and suddenly started broadcasting that as a result of NAFTA, 60% of American workers would suffer. Now, this created quite a sensation, and the agency that had previously chosen not to publish the study had to publish it and had to show it, because what the study showed was that real wages for unskilled workers would fall by 0.02%. This is almost negligible. It was within the margin of zero effect. So they had to reveal it, and they should have done it in the beginning, because then otherwise it sounded defensive, and it also sounded like they were attacking the AFL-CIO, which was hardly the case.